Wall Street Journal columnist and best-selling author Kim Strassel has a new book out today. It's called Resistance at All Costs, How Trump Haters Are Breaking America. I'm a big fan of Kim's writings. I'm a big fan of Kim's tweets, because often in the madness that is political Twitter, she'll just tweet something very common sense, and I'll say, yep, there she is again. Too much common sense on Twitter. Kim Strassel, welcome to WHO Radio. Good morning to you.
Jeff, that might be one of the kindest things anyone has said to me. Common sense on Twitter. It's just not words you hear in the same sentence.
I know. Yeah, you always tweet. I go, well, there's somebody that at least gets it. I always appreciate that. So tell me about, you think that the resistance is going to have long-term damage to our country if they continue acting like they're acting. What do you mean by that, Kim? What long-term damage is being done?
Yeah, well, here's what I mean by it. So for a long time now, 3 years, in fact, we've been told that Donald Trump is wrecking democracy, destroying institutions, destroying the country. And I agree, by the way, that Donald Trump is a norm breaker in some ways. But I think mostly in his speech, in his rhetoric, in his tweets, for instance. But if you step back and you look objectively at actual damage that is being done to the institutions, it's happening from those on the other side who believe that they don't have to follow the rules because they're so desperate to get rid of them. So, a couple of examples. You know, it wasn't Donald Trump that has broken our Senate confirmation process, which is what happened during the Brett Kavanaugh disaster.
Yeah.
It was not Donald Trump that has made Americans lose their belief in the integrity of the FBI or the Department of Justice. That was Jim Comey and Andy McCabe and those who were using that agency to conduct a counterintelligence investigation into a presidential campaign. It's not Donald Trump who is cheapening the meaning of impeachment and enacting it in all kinds of ways that are counter to how we normally use it. That's House Democrats. So these are standards that are being broken that it's not easy to fix them again, and they're going to be here a lot longer than Donald Trump.
Right, because once you've done them, Kim, I mean, then one day there will be a Democratic president, and we'll have a whole bunch of, well, you did this, you did this, you did this. Once the guardrails are off, they're off, aren't they?
Well, look, as I said to all my friends on the left a couple of years ago, as they were justifying Jim Comey and justifying everything the Department of Justice and the FBI had done, I said, okay, just so that we're clear here, what you're saying is that when Donald Trump, now that Donald Trump is president, you're perfectly good with him having his FBI start a counterintelligence investigation into his leading rival? You're good with that? And of course, by the way, now they're not, right?
Right.
He makes a call to the Ukraine. And by the way, what he did was nowhere even near what Hillary Clinton did with her opposition research and that FBI probe. But he makes the call to Ukraine, simply asks about Joe Biden, and now it's an impeachable offense. I think this is one of the frustrations Americans have out there, is that double standard where one side thinks they get to break the rules all the time, but only the other side ever gets called out.
Right, Kim, and the media is a part of this, isn't it? Because I'm supposed to be outraged over the call to Ukraine and not really worry about the dossier and the letter to Ukraine asking for help with the Russian collusion thing. You're exactly right that Americans actually look at this and say, why am I mad about this one thing and the other? But it's because the media is serving a specific audience at this point, isn't it?
Well, I have been in this business for 25 long years, and I've never seen anything like this in my life. Look, those of us on the conservative side have always known that the media is biased, right?
Right.
But I always used to like to explain to people that I thought that bias, it was bad, but it was kind of one of these things that was almost passive in that most of the reporters I knew, it wasn't that they actively went out every day and tried to do in a Republican. They just, everyone they associated with was also left of center. They didn't even really know how biased they were. This is different. This is the media actively engaging one side of a partisan attempt to take out a president, and they're doing it outwardly and egregiously every day. And throwing away all of the basic media standards along in the process. And again, I have a whole chapter in my book on this because we need a functioning media in the country. It's not good for civil society to not trust the people who are supposed to be the truth tellers. And public support and respect for the media, it is incredible lows. That's not because Donald Trump says fake news all the time. It's because the media has done things to make Americans increasingly skeptical of their work.
You have a chapter in the book about the Brett Kavanaugh nomination process, Kim, and what amazed me was that it seemed to me like the Democrats were debating, well, how crazy should the accusations be? Because they knew the accusations couldn't be corroborated. But it seemed to me like when it got to the desperate hour and it looked like he was going to be nominated, they were willing to throw out everything into the media. Is that how you saw it?
Yeah, well, they broke every rule. And again, this gets to the point of standards and norms and damage to institutions. Think about this happen. He made it through his hearings, and suddenly we get an anonymous accusation. We find out that Senator Feinstein kept this back from the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Chuck Grassley. They drop it. The media starts running uncorroborated accusations that get wilder and wilder. You have liberal Democrats on the Judiciary Committee threatening to release material that is committee sensitive, saying, I'm happy to break the rules. And you have the entire Democratic Party and activists throwing out the concept of due process. You have Democrats trying to enlist the FBI to now run investigations into these things. None of these things were have ever been part of a nominations process before, because they're just not appropriate. And again, what I keep telling my friends on the left is Donald Trump's going to be with us another year or another 5 years at most. But you have now created a new norm for Senate confirmations. At some point, you may have a Democratic president. Is this what you want to see happening to your nominees? Because the chances of it now happening are a million times higher because you lowered the bar.
So Kim's book is called Resistance at All Costs, How Trump Haters Are Breaking America. And last question, Kim, though, is this fixable? You authors like you are pointing all of this out. Is it fixable?
Well, I'm an optimist by nature because I'm conservative. Conservatives are optimists.
Right.
So I'm always hopeful. But look, I think for that to happen, we first have to acknowledge everything that's going wrong and why it's wrong, which is that just because you don't like a president, it doesn't mean you don't have to follow all the norms and rules. Okay. And, and so, look, I think one thing that we should all feel happy about is Attorney General Bill Barr at the Department of Justice. He has steadfastly said that he intends to get to the bottom now of how we ended up for 3 years in this Russia collusion mess when there was never any there. That is a question that Americans need answered so that we can restore some trust in the DOJ. If we get some more people like that in places that I think hold these agencies and these groups accountable, then I think we are on the path to making things better.
Wall Street Journal columnist, best-selling author Kim Strassel. The book out today is called Resistance at All Costs, How Trump Haters Are Breaking America. Kim, it was a joy talking with you, and best wishes on the book.